Hi there, Mike Zuber from One Rental at a Time. And as this post heading or comment or title, I'm not really sure what it is, states, I'm seeing a lot of investors make some pretty spectacular mistakes when they start looking out of state for investment properties. Now, let me first be clear right at the opening. I think out of state investing can be the right approach for the right people when they do their homework, they learn a market, they build a team, they do all of those things, right? Out of state investing does not allow you to make quick decisions, sort of outsource everything to someone else and just hope and pray things work out. Again, I think out of state investing is a great idea for lots and lots of people. I unfortunately have spoken at many real estate events here recently. My YouTube channel, One Rental at a Time, is getting a lot of traction from out-of-state investors, from California investors talking about the Midwest and the South and all these other areas. And the hair on the back of my neck is starting to stand up with just some of the comments I'm getting. And this is because, again, I've been doing this for a while. And I remember what it felt like in 2008 before the crash. I remember the lunacy of cocktail parties and dinner conversation with friends about this and that contract being flipped and just all of these things. And the fact that we couldn't buy our ninth property because the numbers just didn't work, right? What worked at 100 did not work at 260 because the rents didn't change. And I got to tell you, I am sensing the same kind of herd mentality today with two concepts. First, out of state, right? If you happen to live in a high priced area, the central US, often called the Midwest, and the South is getting ridiculous amounts of conversation. And again, I think it had its time. I think it was a good idea. I think there was a lot of pent up kind of value there. However, when the masses start coming and the people that live in those locations no longer want to invest, that should be a sign, right? If, for example, I'm not going to pick a city because I'm just going to get hammered, but just pick a city in a Midwest state. And 3 or 4 years ago, you could buy a house for X. And today it's worth X times 1.5. The locals were probably pretty active, right? There's locals in that town who own dozens, if not hundreds of units, and they were buying hand over fist. However, when they start telling me, Michael, prices have gotten too high, we don't buy anymore, we're closer to being sellers than to being buyers, that should be a sign. And I see that coming in lots of Midwest cities. In addition, the other concept I am seeing is multifamily syndication. I don't know what it is. I get the attraction of saying you own hundreds, if not thousands of units. And believe me, I wish I could say that, which I can't. Never bought anything bigger than 18 units. So, maybe this is just, somebody being bitter. I don't know. But there's just not that many of those, right? I don't know what the quantity is of apartment buildings over 100 units, but it's probably less than 10,000 across the US, maybe 20,000. I don't know. But if the supply is relatively fixed, which I believe it is, and if the demand goes up 500% or 1,000%, what happens? Well, prices go up. And eventually the same thing happens. The people that got in early, the quote unquote smart money, they start selling or certainly stop buying. And yet the herd keeps coming. And again, I say this from the realm of experience. I remember exactly what 2008 was. I remember the craziness of single family homes and people buying and selling contracts before houses were actually finished in new housing developments. And then I remember what those housing developments looked like after the crash. They just evaporated. Unfinished stuff just left. So I generated a list of the mistakes that I think investors are making today on out of state. And I think there is the biggest one, but I have a big list and I'll go through them. The first one is not going to the location. You know, it is mind-boggling to me that an investor would say, I'm going to plunk down 20, 40, 50, 100, whatever, $1,000 and never go visit the area. I get it. You don't have to, right? But here's the deal. Google Maps, Street Views, Zillows, whatever, FaceTime, live streams, whatever. If you're not willing to go see it, that should be a red flag. Now, I do appreciate that sometimes timing will prevent you from going there during a deal. Maybe you think you found one and you got to get it done. I get that. But if you're adamant, I'm never going to go there, I would say that's a red flag. You should at least ask yourself why. I get the whole idea of live where you want and invest where the money makes sense, right? Totally get it, right? It's a saying I put out there all the time. But if you never want to go there, do you really want your money there? I mean, really? So that's one. Another one is, and I think this is a big one, and I think we're going to see some spectacular collapses. I think people are picking location over team. Well, let me tell you what I mean by that. I think some people are hearing cities that were once hot or maybe are hot and just going, I want a piece of X. And again, I'm not going to name any cities because I don't want to get the hate mail. But maybe there was a city that was sleepy for decades and suddenly it's hot and your friend made a return or you saw somebody, talking on YouTube or Bigger Pockets or whatever. And you go, I want to throw some money there. So you pick the city or location first. And then you kind of take whatever team, whatever turnkey provider there is. That is backwards. I strongly suggest you evaluate the team first and the location second, right? Because I promise you, a great team can do wonderful things in a bad location, but a horrible team can destroy a hot market, right? They could steal from you. You could file class action suits and all these other things. And that is going to happen. And as soon as the market turns, we are going to find out who's been stealing and lying to you and running Ponzi schemes and all these other things. It's going to happen. And you heard it here first. I'm sure it's happening now, but in good times, money flows. And just like the Ponzi schemes work, you get new investors to pay old investors. I think it's happening now. And that's a sad thing. And we'll only know when the market turns and it gets ugly again. And again, I say this coming from a world of living and investing pre-crash and after crash. And the stories you hear after are sad and horrific. So you have to pick the team first. If you're going to pick a turnkey provider or you're going to pick a city, I would challenge you to pick a turnkey provider first. Please spend at least as much time evaluating the turnkey provider as you are the city. And again, I suggest that order. Turnkey provider first, city second. Here's one, and I admit to falling for this when I started as well. I was attracted to, and I get the fact that we're all attracted to cheap prices. Hey, I want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-story house built in the 50s for 50 grand. I can't get it in my market, and my market's $1 million. But hey, if I go to city X in the middle of the country, I can get it for 50 grand. Shoot, I can get it and its neighbor for 50 grand. I get it. But again, when you talk to the local investors who've been doing it a while, they will tell you that, you know what, that 50K house that's now going for 75, it was always worth 50K the last 50 years. It was worth 50K when my grandfather bought it, right? When their grandfather bought it, the steel mill was humming, the manufacturing plants were going, and then guess what? They left. And we had all this inflation and all this stuff, and it still was worth 50 grand. People, when the locals start telling you stuff's overpriced because stupid California money's coming in, you better pay attention. And that's happening over and over and over again in lots of different cities. We are getting East and West Coast money flooding cities, and the locals there are going, you want it for that? Take it, right? They're calling us dumb money. And, we need to wake up. That's not a good thing to be. Another one is we are believing spreadsheet numbers without question. I don't know what it is about saying you earn double-digit returns. The cap rate's 10 or cash on cash is 10 or 12 or 15 or whatever. People, it's a spreadsheet. Yes, they may even have the last 12 or 18 months to quote unquote prove it. I get it. But you need to think about what happens when the business cycle changes. And this, I think, is the biggest mistake that people are making and where all of this has been leading up to. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the business cycle is real, right? We have, at least in my lifetime, if you believe the CNBC and Wall Street Journal reports, an unemployment rate that has never been this low in my entire life. And I was born in the early 70s. If that's the case, should we take the numbers that are happening today and just think they're going to exist into the future forever? No, this is a one-time thing, never been done before. So to think that the times will always be this good and you can extrapolate the numbers from today going forward is lunacy. And this is exactly what happened in 2008. We had 3 or 4 years of home appreciation of near double digits. And people started to extrapolate, we're going to the moon and prices go up forever. People, I remember it. Some of us have short memory. Some of us have only been investing the last 5 years. I promise you, the business cycle is real. And we need to start thinking about worst case scenario. We need to start thinking about downside protection. So when you are looking out of state, do me a favor. Go back and look to how that location worked during the last recession. Go research and find out unemployment went from X to Y. Go figure out what happened to national unemployment and then what happened to unemployment in that city. Because when the business cycle is real, people lose their jobs, people stop paying rent, you start having more vacancies, you start to have dropping rents, you start having move-in specials, and it just gets ugly. If you are buying for perfection, which a lot of investors are doing today, and it's why the local investors are not buying, when you buy for perfection and you finance for perfection and you're not conservative, you are at risk of losing that property. You are at least at risk of having to feed that property because it becomes an alligator, which is something I talk about in my book that I created because I did a cash out refi that was too aggressive. It happens. I did it. It hurts every month. And to think you could be buying multiple Midwest locations that ultimately are destined to become alligators when unemployment doubles, right? Unemployment going from 4 to 8% is not crazy, right? In the last recession, it was 10% or 11%. It was almost, I think it was double digits. Look it up. So people, I want to be I want to at least caution you to do some downside investigation. Again, as I stated in the beginning, think out-of-state investing can be wonderful and should be a part of your investing if that's what you want to do. I just want you to be careful. I don't want you to follow the herd. I saw what happened to the herd last time and they got crushed and they just never come back. I believe real estate investing, when you think long-term, conservatively finance, you can do great things, but you have to be able to hold through the entire business cycle. It's easy to hold when it's a seller's market and prices go up. You look like a genius. You tell all your friends pile in, and then pretty soon there's a herd. And then when the crash happens, shoot, it doesn't even have to be a crash. We could have a 10% drop in prices and people would be crushed. So please, do your homework. If you're looking at city X in the Midwest or South, do yourself a favor. Go back and look at how that city performed during the last recession. Shoot, go back and look at how it performed the last 2 recessions and just make sure you can hold on. And again, I say this because I'm hearing more and more local investors who've lived there their entire life tell me, Michael, the cash coming in from the coast, east and west, is crazy. These prices don't make sense. And if they're saying that, we should at least pay attention and ask ourselves if we're doing smart things. So again, I think out-of-state investing can work. I just think there's a lot of dumb money chasing smart money, and it's going to end badly. So let me know what you think. Leave a comment below. Share this video if you think it will help anybody. Have a great day.